Hey everyone, I'm back with another tutorial. In this tutorial, we're gonna build an e-commerce app. We're gonna start off by building some of these components for our landing page, and then afterwards we're gonna move on to our search page. This is where we see all the products. On the left-hand side, we also have these different kinds of filters. So this tutorial, I'm using React Next.js. For state management, we're gonna use React, also context. And if you don't already know, you're also gonna learn how to push some of these filters into URLs and generate query params. So watch along, it's really interesting tutorial. We also have this like pagination in here. So in addition to that search page, we have this separate product page. Users can change the quantity, read more information, and also add to cart. As we add to cart, this indicator, we can see how many items we have in the cart, and then this is how the cart page looks like with all the items listed here and the checkout button. Also keep in mind that this is mobile friendly, so let's see on the mobile view, we get the full view of the products, as well as you see the sidebar of the filter. This is turned into like a button, and then the modal opens up and we can see our filters and apply them from here. And lastly, we have this like links. So for example, for the women clothes only, and then for like men clothes. All right, let's get started. Our project with Tailwind. So I'm gonna copy this. The only thing that we'll change here would be, instead of create React app, we're gonna have create next app, since this is a next project. So just changing that, and I'm also gonna rename, instead of my project, I'm gonna name this e-commerce app. Pressing enter, and then once it's created, I'm gonna cd into the project. So I don't have the create next app installed, so okay, to proceed, yes. Do the same if you don't as well. Okay, let's cd e-commerce app, and let's install the Tailwind dependencies, just copying from here and pasting. So the second command will create like a Tailwind file that we're gonna modify. So let's open the project up in VS Code now. Okay, now you should be in your project able to see Tailwind config.js file, and as per documentation, let's copy this and replace content with this list. And final step, I believe, is just to copy this into our global styles file. For our case, that's in global CSS, and top of the file, pasting it in. And finally, we run the application. So let's open it up in our browser. Fonts and configure them so we can use them in Tailwind. So I downloaded fonts from this website, and the font that I'm using is called Graphic. So go ahead, download the fonts. You can also get them from my GitHub. After, create a folder named fonts in public, and now inside this folder, I'm gonna paste my font files. Import them into our main global CSS file. So the way to import files is using face. So font face, and then we put the name of the font. So first one, there's like 3 types. First one, I'm gonna do medium. So this would be graphic medium, and then the URL. So because we put this in public folder, it is accessible from any part of the application. So public, fonts, graphic medium, and I'll do the same for the other 2. Also, let's remove some of this extra code. For example, for the font family, this one as well. And let's add, so we want H1s and paragraphs to be automatically displayed using our newly added font. So let's do that. Graphic. And to be able to use these fonts as we use other fonts in Tailwind by adding some classes, we need to edit this in Tailwind config.js. So this goes inside extend. So we're gonna give like a class name, so graphic medium. So next time we say text-graphic medium, it will have the font applied. So then the font name, as we named it when we imported it, and the type, so let's there. Okay, and same goes for the light and the bold. Since we changed Tailwind configuration, but testing this out to see if the fonts are loaded, so we are going to inspect on the P in here, and as we can see, the font is loading from globals.css. If we remove this, would be different. Okay, so first for components, I'm gonna create new folder. And inside here, some of the elements that would be used, and can be used anywhere in the application, I usually create elements folder. And inside here, let's create new file for button.jsx. Okay, so export constant button, and in here we can think about what does the button take. First, it can have children. We're also gonna have onClick function, and lastly variant, but variant is optional, so by default we're gonna have primary. So let's return first the button component, passing the onClick, and inside here we're gonna display children. Also for the styling, we're gonna have different styling based on what variants are there, so but let's define the default one first. So constant default style. Oops. So let's have some height, padding, and also have it rounded. And now the variant styles. First one we have primary. This is gonna be text of white color, background slate 800. It's kind of like a shade of gray, and then on hover it's gonna be a little bit darker, so slate 900. We have also secondary, which would be text black, background would be white, and then on hover background slate 50. Let's have one more for the dark version, so text white, background would be black. On hover, let's make a little bit lighter shade, so black 700, and no rounded corners. So to be able to use like these different styles, as you know, in Tailwind we can't have conditionals inside the class name, so I'm gonna use this small utility package manager. It's called CLSX. So let's go ahead and copy this, install it into our project. And import it at the top. So this would be import CLCX from CLCX. So now we can use this in here, CX, and then this would combine style. So default style would be the one that's always there, and then button style would take in our variant and generate styles based on that. And also if there's any like class names that have been passed, let's also do that and make sure they're being passed from the props. Closing this out. So if there is a class name, then we're gonna also apply that so that our button is easily customizable. Okay, now that we have that, let's try to display it. So pages, index.js. I'm gonna remove all this extra code. Import our button at the top. Variant, let's make it dark, and since this is the next step, we are not using source folder, we're using pages folder that will contain all the pages, and then another one we're gonna have like a components folder that we're gonna need styling on. So let's update the configuration as this. Okay, now we have that. Let's move on to the header now. And also throughout the application, we're going to be using some of the icons. And icons are going to be in SVG format. And to be able to easily import them into our Next.js application, I'm going to use this package. So what this package does is we can import icons just like we would import any other like React component. So let's go ahead and install. And once we have this installed, next we have to update our configuration. We don't have Webpack, but we do have Next config.js, which we're gonna update. So the way this will be updated is that we're gonna take our module exports and we're gonna wrap them into Webpack, and we're gonna pass on config. And then config.module rules.push. This is just the workaround that we have to do because we're not using this one. So, and then let's copy the config here to GI, and then have to also pass issuer, that which I have. But at the end in here we return the config. So just because we made changes to Next config file, we would have to restart the app again. Alright, so now that we have configuration updated for the icons, I'm gonna create new folder inside the assets folder, and I will paste the icons. I'll paste all the icons that I'm gonna be using throughout the app, and I got them from SVG repo, free SVG repo, I believe that's the name.com. I'm gonna also link it in the description. Alright, and then now let's create a new component for the header. For this one, I'm gonna create a new folder, name it navigation. So all the navigation components are gonna go under this. And let's start with the header. So new file, header.jsx. Let's expand. So importing the 3 icons that I'll be using. Assets, icons. Yeah, this kind of import is very convenient. This one is user. Okay, so let's create the component. So export constant header. And let's start building out the component. So in div class name, we're gonna make this a flex container, and flex direction would be column. Items, let's center them. Justify content, also center. And then margin at the top. Here, let's create navigation component, and I'll divide this into three parts. On the left side, we're gonna have menu items like women, men, or in between we're gonna have logo, and on the right side we're gonna use some icons to display the other menu items like user, search, etc. So this one in between is going to be logo, and this one is gonna be the one that's gonna contain unordered list. And let's add some list items like women, and later on we're gonna turn this into the links. And then here goes the icons. So search, and then we have user, and finally the cart. And let's do styling on this navigation. So we're also going to make this flex, justify around, so all the parts would be like kind of allocated into three-way, background white, but we're gonna have opacity of 80%, some backdrop blur of medium, shadow would be medium, width we want it to be full. Also we want this to be fixed. At the top it would be kind of like a sticky header, and since it's fixed, let's indicate top, left 0, right is also 0, and the index set it high so it's visible at all times. So now let's go inside the div. We want this navbar menu left. This is also flex. Height is 100%. Items, let's do center. So space in between the items, and on large, let's do flex. It would be hidden by default. Flex, and let's make this also flex column. Okay, and then let's import header into our index.js. So we can actually make this part of app.js so it's available on all pages. So import header from components, navigation, header. Okay, and let's wrap this component. So inside, creating a fragment, putting components inside it. And the header comes first, so in here. Let's leave the index.js as it. Okay, so here we have logo and some of the items. Let's add some more styling to it. So for the logo, let's also make this flex, items, center, and same thing for this one, space xf. Okay, so we have this aligned. Now let's turn this into a separate component, like a navigation link, and also let's wrap this, because this is just icons, but it will be actually buttons. So let's create two separate components for these two different kinds of menu items. And this component is also gonna go under navigation. So navigation link first. So since this will be a link, we need to import link from Next.js link component, and then we can create our nav link. So this will take in two items, URL and the label of the link. URL is required in any links in Next.js. So this is a list item. I'm gonna give it a class name, so border button, which should only be available if the link is active. So border slate 900, margin right 1. So we can also pass one more props, which is active, and then display the styles based on that. So list, and then inside here, let's have link href equals URL. And here we're gonna have an A tag and some styling, so flex. Text would be gray 600. On hover, it would be background a little bit lighter slate. And cursor, we want pointer since it is clickable. Transition colors, duration 600. Some margin, also some padding, and rounded corners. Closing this out, and inside displaying label. So we close out the link, and now let's do constant. So default style would be margin right 1. And this part would only be, it's active, right? So let's import our utility package and wrap this into one. So CLCX, here we're gonna have one default style, and if is active, then we're gonna have style. This would be the border bottom and border slate 900. And active style. Okay, now let's do the navigation button. This would be for the icons. New file, nav button, the JSX. Also importing link and then creating the button. So here we also need URL, and then instead of label we're gonna have children, and then return link. Technically we could have just created, now that I think of, one component for both and then passed label as a children. So feel free to do that, but I'm gonna show how we can finish this button. So class name styling also would be almost the same. So flex, text, gray 600, hover, background slate 200, cursor is pointer, transition colors, duration 300, margin would be only 1, and padding would be 5, also rounded large. And here would go the children. Okay, let's import this to inside header now. Import nav button and nav link. So let's turn this into nav link where we have, so URL would be women, and we'll create this page later, but label would be also women, and same thing for the man. So pasting this for each single one of them and moving this inside here. And adding the URLs of the pages that we're gonna create later on. So this would be search, this would be user, and finally the cart. Okay, here it is. So women, men, let's make this flex row instead. Okay, great. So now let's move on to the banner. So we can just create that inside components, banner.jsx, and let's import image from next image. And what else do we need from here? Okay, good for now. So export constant banner. This would be divided into two parts. So first let's create the main container. Class name would be flex. So the two parts would be, one on the left hand side we're gonna have image. So banner image container. And then on the other side, we're gonna have description with the call to action. So banner description container. So in terms of sizing, on small screens, we're gonna make the width of both full. And then on larger screens, the width would be half, so 1, 2, and this stands true for both of these containers. Now for the image, I'm gonna create a folder in public folder. So we need to put images definitely in the public, otherwise once we use source on the image, we would need to pass URL to the public folder. And let me paste the image here. So this image, I got it from unsplash.com. And let's import image as well. So import banner image from public images and the name of the image, banner image.jpg. So this import it will help us to pass as source props this like banner image once we create the image, and then image goes in the first container as we mentioned. So image, let's give it alt, so banner image, and then source equals this one, img, close this out. And here, let's create another component. We're gonna wrap this like text and other like a button in it. So flex, let's make it column, and width, let's just do 2/3 only. Let's start with a header, introducing new styles. By default, Tailwind removes all the styling from headers. So class name, we would have to specifically indicate that we want text to be large and some padding in it. Next up, we have this paragraph, something like high performing, And also let's add some padding at the bottom. And finally, we're gonna have a button. So let's import the button that we already created. Shop. And we're gonna import this banner into index.js. So import banner. Let's remove this button, replace it with the banner. Let's see how it looks like. Next up, we have category section. Categories inside images folder. Let's have another folder that's gonna contain all the categories. So here, some of the images. And now let's create the element component itself. So new file, category section. Export constant. Here we'll probably need another component to display the cards itself, but now pasting this array that I have manually created. Each of the element in the array contains two fields. It's an object with name and image URL, so we're gonna display the name as a label of the button, and then we're gonna show the image in the background. So yeah, let's use this data to display it in our JSX. So div, inside div, let's have a header. So class name would be text, we want it centered, also large. Margin at the top, some at the bottom, and a padding. So this would be the text browse by category. And here, let's create another element. This time, this one would be grid. So we're gonna use the grid columns to display our categories. So in total, we're gonna have like 4 sections. And inside here, we can map out our array. So categories.map. So we're gonna have the element itself and then the index. So we can have a div that just displays the category name, and add this in our index main page. So after the banner comes category section. Okay, so we have browse by categories, and here we need return statement after the map. So I think this should be fine. Okay, so we have the name. Let's create a card component, and we're gonna use card component here. So components, new file, category, card. So we would need image, and would also need our button. So export constant category card, and this will take in like the 2 fields of our objects. And return div with class name. This would be relative, width would be full, and have some fixed height. Afterwards, we're gonna have image. So the source of this would be the image URL that we're gonna pass. Also layout, let's do fill, object, fit. That's gonna be cover. And then alt tag would be the name. Also some styling, so margin left, this would be auto. Same thing for margin right. So width would be 100%, and then height would also be auto. So closing this image tag out, now let's do the button. So variant would be secondary this time, and then we also have that customized class name. So we want this to be absolute, like the position of it, so that it's at the bottom of the card, but also like in between in terms of x-axis. So translate y12. When we do minus in front, that means negative value, so negative by the half. And also translate x also 1, 2, margin would be auto, left 1, 2. And then from the bottom, we want this 10% of the container up, and the button would contain the name of the category. So I think that should be it. Let's import this component in here. So import category card, and then remove this. So name is category dot name, and then the image URL would be category, so like this one right here. So what is this? Key prop. So key, that's why we have index here. So okay, so this is how our categories look like, and then hover, this gets a little bit darker. For this one we had header 2. Let's go back to the styles page and also apply our font to header 2 automatically, like the medium one. Okay, that looks better. Now let's move on to the footer, to components folder. And then this one should be pretty simple, where we have just like also use group to style it, and we're gonna have like 3 columns. We're gonna also like center the footer up to like certain width. And yeah, let's use the footer tag for HTML, and then the class name that will be applied for the whole footer is just the background color. And then next up, let's create the container of the content. So class name would be container, and as I mentioned, we want it to span maybe like 80% of the width. So margin auto, we want it centered, and some padding. And the div for our links, so class name equals footer links margin 2. And in here, let's create grid. So grid columns 3. So inside our first column, we have section with the title of account. So margin, name of the section, and this would be followed by some links. So footer link to text, let's make it different color. So this would be maybe like login, and we're gonna have another one for sign up. Then another section title, and let's have another footer link here. So account, maybe this would be about company, and below this we're gonna have footer copyright information, so another row for this one. Text, let's center it. And then the usual all rights reserved. Let's import it at the index. See how it looks like. So this, some kind of padding on the left and right. Let's see where it's coming from and let's remove it. So this is for the home container, home module CSS. So maybe, in here, command click. Oops, that didn't take us to the right place. Command click here. And let's remove this padding. See if it's gone. All right, that's better. We're moving to the more fun part, which is the search page. So as you know, creating pages in Next.js is by creating a new file inside pages folder. So let's go ahead, do that. That would be search.js, and let's create the page itself. So in search page, we're gonna obviously have like a title and the search bar. I'm just gonna get started with the title first. And then let's navigate to our search page to make sure that it works. So first, just for the class name, large text, for text center, and font, let's make this graphic light. So remember the font configuration that we did, so we can use it as like a class names. And in here, this would be search. Oh, and we are missing a very important part, which is export default search page. Always on the search components, we should have the default export. Here it is, search bar below this search title of the page. For that, just in general for search, I'm gonna create a new folder inside components, name it search. And in here, let's create a file for the bar, JSX. I'll import the icon that I'm going to be using from our icons folder. Search SVG, and then create the component. So let's return the div first. And let's make it flex, and let's center our search. And the input, type of the input would be text. Also placeholder, that would be search. As for the class name, let's make a background slate 300, padding 2, and also make this about medium rounded. Closing out, and then next we need the button. For this one, I'm just gonna use regular button and add some styling to it, and inside the button we're gonna have this like search icon. So for this one, let's have no background so we can see the icon, just border size would be 2, and I'll make it black. And let's set the width and the height. Also margin and flex, item centered, and justify also center. And I'll add the functionality once we have the products displayed on the page. For now, I guess we can record the state, so let's do that. So import use state, create a new state for the search input. So constant search set search use state. By default this would be empty, and then in here we're gonna pass value to be search, and then on change we're gonna take the event and then set search event target value so we can capture the value. Okay, so now let's add this inside the search. So I'm gonna import it right here. Search bar, and then this goes below the title. Let's see how it looks like. Here it is. The products, I created this data folder and put like data in it. This is once again front-end tutorial, so we'll be using static data, but there's a full stack tutorial coming up, so make sure that you have notifications on so that you don't miss that one. So yeah, let's go over what I have in my data folder now. I have a list of products. You can create this list on your own. For some of the things, for example, for description, I used like one of those online AI content generation tools, but it's either that, and there's also like packages which lets you generate like fake data, for example, Faker, but the online AI tools, they need like subscription after you use a couple of them, so I kept like reusing some of this. Or yeah, not happy with this data generation tool, so let me know in the comments if you have found something that works for you. Anyway, so this is an array, and these are the fields of the product. So first we have ID, then title, to display also which category it belongs to, image URL, so this is mostly image name, and images, as we store all images in like public folders. So I have inside images folder, I have this products. Once again, you can get those images if you want from my GitHub or use your own. So inside product folder, the names like match in here, and later on we're gonna use this path to display from here. So after we have gender, M or F, price, also the color and the description. And at the end is I am exporting this products from products.js file. I have the same thing for all the categories and other fields that we're using here. I have this filters.js file where later on we're gonna use this data to display them as filters. Yeah, and then we went over the products. Okay, so now let's display the products on our search page. Create a container that's gonna hold all our search results, aka the products, and inside that we're gonna have another container that would have just like each product data. So the first one that I mentioned, results, will list all this like products, and then we're gonna take and we're gonna use that inside our search.js, which is our like page file. So in here, let's do that inside search. So for the results one, I'm gonna name results container.jsx, and then for the products, let's do product container. Container. Okay, inside results, first thing, let's import our product. So import products from like data. And create the component. Results container. Return class name flags, and then inside let's create another div. So this would be container margin auto space y2, and then on smaller screens it would be 0. Also add the gap, and this will be grid for like larger screens. Also, let's define the grid columns and make it 3. And now let's map our data. So map, here we have product, also the index. We can either use index as the key or the ID of the product itself. So before we display the full like image and card and everything, let's just show its title. And let's add this on the search page. So import first results container, and then in here let's create another div inside which we're gonna have this results. So this div would be grid because later on the left side we're gonna add filters as well. So let's say it's gonna have 4 columns. One of it would be for filters, the other 3 would be for the results, and then for now we can let the results take the whole width, and later on once we add the filters then update the column like sizing. So for here let's do column span 4, and inside here let's place our results container. So let's see, did I do return? No. So what is the key? That's why I created div, because I wanted to pass the index. Okay, so we have the titles. Now let's work on the create product container so we can display this data more properly. So in the product container we would need to display dynamic routes for the images, because image data comes from our like the products array. So for that we're gonna use Next.js as like custom image loader. I'm gonna show you guys how. So first let's take in the name of the product, and let's take in product URL for the image. And let's create what we're returning. So for width we want it to be full, also text to be center, and let's make it rounded. So then inside we're gonna have another div for the image. So border, let's put it inside this rounded border. So slate 300, and did I say rounded? Yeah. And below this, so this inside here image is gonna go. So, and this is where the name goes. Now let's create the custom loader that I talked about, but first, since we are displaying image, let's import that. And constant image loader. So source of the image. So this is going to generate image by using the path where we put our images. So it's inside public folder. Public is accessible from everywhere, so we don't have to go back, we can just say images, and then products is the name of the folder, and this is where after goes the image name. And once we create image in the load as a loader props, we're gonna pass this image loader. And alt, let's do just product image set. I don't know if we should set the width, or let's just do layout. Let's do width for now, and if it doesn't look good, we can always change it later. And height equals to 300. Object fit cover. Okay, and then as a source, we need to pass in the name. So source would be image URL. So then it uses this image URL inside here. Okay, let's import this inside results container, product container, and use it instead of just this div. So first key still equals to index, then we have name, which is product title, and image URL. So product. Okay, let's see. All right, so this is our images right now. Now let's create like a separate page that displays more on all the information for like the product and has also add to cart button. For the product page, let's go ahead in the pages folder, create a new, actually instead of file, we're gonna create like a folder because of the nature of the path, the nature of the path for the product. So this is gonna be product slash product slash, and then comes the product ID. Since this path is like dynamic, in Next.js we wrap those dynamic variables inside like the brackets .js. And inside here we can just create a component like we would create any component. So constant product page. And just because this is a page, once again, we need to, at the end, we need to have export default. So for the props, we're not going to be taking any props because we're going to get the product by using the product ID. But to get that, we need to, let's just display this for now. So we need to make use of the router for Next.js. And using that, we can have the query information. So let's import use router and let's create the hook for that. So constant router equals use router. And then constant, the way we get variables is we put variable name inside like this bracket, kind of like destructuring, and then this equals to router.query. So this is how we get like query parameters. And to look up, so just keep in mind that this is a hook. So like right the second that the page loads, product ID might not be available. So if we look it up, then it might be undefined and we'll get error, right? So to avoid this, let's use effect hook from like React. And then once it becomes available, then let's look up and go through the list afterwards. So use effect. And inside the dependency array, we're gonna put this product ID. And here, let's say like, if product ID exists, then here like, look up the product. Also, we wanna save the product information. So let's use state to create another hook. That would be for constant product set product. Let's use state by default we have an empty object. And let's say if user somehow landed on this page, on this link, but the product maybe doesn't exist anymore, let's have another variable that's gonna tell us that we couldn't find it in our data. So by default, this is going to be false. And another one for loading. This loading would be displayed until this product ID is available. So set loading. It's similar to like waiting. If we were getting this information from the API, we would still be like waiting for it. So by default, this is actually true when the page loads, but then afterwards we're gonna set it to false. And let's also have the one for the quantity. Set quantity. So later on we're gonna have like a button that users can change the quantity. By default, let's do 0y1. Okay, so and then in here we're gonna update some of those. So first let's find the product. So index equals, here at the top we also need our products list. So products from the data. And inside, let's find index. And here this would be based off of if the product.id equals to this product ID of ours, then we have our index. And then if this is found, so if this is not found, index would be -1. So if this is more than -1, then we can set product to the found. And if that's not the case, we're gonna set not found to true. And also in here, since we already did the searching, set loading goes to false. Right, so now based on that information, let's update what we're displaying. So if not found, we will return product not found. If it is loading, then we would say it's loading, or display like a spinner or something. And then if it is found, we're just gonna display it. So class name, we're gonna also make a grid, divide into one on the smaller screens, and then starting from like the medium, it's gonna be 2 columns, one for the image, another one for the other information on the size. Gap, let's do 4. Also, we don't want this like stretch all the way on like larger screens. So screen LG is one of the like maximum sizes of the container for Tailwind. Margin auto, we want this center. And let's also, actually let's add that here. Let's make sure that product is there. And then let's display more information about it. So as we said, this one is going to take, like one of the columns is going to take like 2. And then inside here, we got image container. So let's add border rounded one, and also the same color that we usually use for the border, which is border slate 300. Flex, also items is gonna be centered. So we want that image inside to be centered, and justify centered, that would do the same. Here we're gonna need the same image loader as we had for the product container. So I'm just gonna copy that from here and paste it in somewhere above this one here. And let's, while we're here, import the image. Otherwise we won't be able to create one. So image, just like we did previously, it would be loader, image loader. And then the source would be the product and then image URL. So it was img, or yeah, I think it was img. Alt text would be product image. So width, let's set it once again to 150. That looked like a good size. That would be 300. And then object feet, we want it cover, so the image is not like stretched or anything. Okay, well, we have the image. Let's create the other column now. So that would be like after this one. So div, class name, column, span, that's 3, flex direction column, and then justify would be in between. And let's name the class inside like product info. First, we're gonna have a header with the product title, just like we did in the card. But another thing that we're gonna have here is gonna be the description. So font of this, let's make it graphic. Oops. Graphic light. And just product dot description. And now like what we can update using, so this is the information, and here are gonna be some of the controls. So on the left we're gonna have like a counter that's like gonna update the amount, and on the right we're gonna have add to cart. So since we're gonna allocate this on like kind of like a arrow, let's make it also like flex. Flex direction would be row. So product controls, flex row, and items allocated on the side. So this is where the counter will go, and then here we're gonna have button from our button components, and at the top it automatically, since I selected imports, but if it didn't do the same for you, just import the button. And then variant, I'm gonna make it dark. We're gonna add afterwards add to cart functionality, and inside button we're gonna have the text that says add to cart. So let's create first the counter so we can place it below the button. Let's have another folder for all like the product related UI components. So I'm gonna name this product, and here I'll create this number counter .jsx. So in here we're gonna have like three parts. On the left there will be a minus, like a button to decrement the amount, and then in between we'll display the amount, but also let users put in the amount, and then on the right like the plus sign. So this will take in two things. That would be the quantity that's already there, and then update quantity function that it's gonna call once users click the buttons or update the text input itself. So let's return for like the main div, let's just set like a width, so that would do 32. Then let's have a label for the input, so HTML4, and then this would be custom input number. Later on we're gonna match once we do the input itself. And so the class name, this we want stretched fully, and text, let's do black 700. Also we want to make sure the text is small, and font can be semi-bold, and this will say quantity, yeah. After we move on with like the buttons and input together, so that would be, we want them on the same like rows. So flex row height, we can set the height to 10, width can be full, also rounded corners, position relative, background transparent, and margin at the top so it's not too close up to the label. And yeah, let's start with doing like buttons now. So this one would be on click. That's gonna call like the update quantity function. So update quantity, we call it this way, and then this would take in the existing quantity and decrement it by 1. And let's do, so class name for this, we're just gonna put like minus sign inside, but let's style it a little bit. So background, make it gray, text a little bit darker gray so that we have some like contrast. On hover, this is a button, so let's also like make it darker on hover so it has some kind of like effect. And let's also change the background, so for 100, so height would be full, and let's set fixed width, so rounded large, cursor pointer, as we usually do with buttons, and outline none. Oh, that was a long one. And inside here, let's do this span for like the minus sign, and then the styling for the span, we want it centered, and text to Excel font, let's do thin. And then we should have exactly the same thing for plus. So I'm just gonna copy, paste it, and change few things. First thing that I'll change is gonna be the way quantity get updated. So this would be plus, and this would be plus. So and then in between, let's do our input element. So input type, this would take in a number, and let's do some styling real quick. So outline, we want none, also same thing on like focus. Text, we want it to be centered, width equals full, background same as the backgrounds of the other like buttons, font semi bold, text of size medium. On hover, let's do text black. On focus as well, while like user is typing, let's do it black, medium, text, base, cursor, default. We also want flex, items, center. Now the default text color, which is gray 700, as is for the other ones. And I think that's about it. So the name should match the label HTML4, which is custom input number. Put number, and what else are we missing? So for the value, I'm gonna continue this on this line. Value would be the quantity, and then on change, we would also call the update quantity function, and we're gonna pass user input. So let's close this out, and for the user input, I think we can try this, target value, if this captures. Okay, and then export number counter. Let's do default, then we can either remove this and then on change just like target whatever the value is set to. But then if user changes the value using one of these buttons, we still want to display what like the result from the button change. So that's why let's create like a separate state for user input. So use state user input, set user input. So use state, set it to quantity. Now in here we're gonna say user input. And once they start typing, instead of update quantity, we're gonna update user input, set user input. And then the way we would update quantity is we're gonna add an use effect hook that would be triggered every time user updates the input. So here in the dependency array, we pass in user input, and we're calling update quantity using the user input. Let's see, is missing dependencies. Yeah, we're just calling this function, so we don't need this. And yeah, that should be it. Page and adding this number counter. So import number counter, and we said we're gonna add it above the button. So we need to pass the quantity. For now, let's just pass this one that we created here, and then update quantity because we want to capture the amount in here. So this one is going to be, let's create a new rounded from this one, and also, so this one I'm gonna make rounded the other side, so it looks like it's like one thing, and then I'm gonna separate this to move this in here. So let's see, rounded left, so that let's make this rounded right. And instead of, so that's in here, and then instead of items in the end, let's do also justify between. Okay, that looks better. And then so this will take in the new quantity and set it. So set quantity to this new value that would be passed to it. Okay, let's see how it looks like. So to navigate here, we need product, and then I'm just gonna use product ID, use input. So I have a typo in number counter. I use input here. Okay, so it was, you saw the loading, and then it looked up, and then it ended this, it showed us this page. So we have description. Let's update some of the styling in here. Set this value to actually quantity. So once we update it, then we can see, yeah, add to cart functionality. So the items that are being added in the cart, we actually need them in multiple places. For example, we might add an item from one product page, and then it has to, we want to show up here like a number, and then once we go to the cart, we also need that information. So that's why I think it's best if we stored it in a context, so it's available all throughout the page. So for context, I'm gonna create a new folder, and inside where I'll store all the contexts is this one. I'll create a file, so cart context.js, and start creating it. So first import just React, and then we can create context by giving it a name. So cart context again in our case, and then this equals to React create context hook. And then we can create reducers similar to how reducers act in React. They take in the action type. They also take in any of the the arguments that come with those actions, and then they return a new state. If you are not that familiar with Redux, make sure I have other tutorials, so they're gonna show in the top right corner, and make sure to check them out. Okay, so let's see, for our cart reducer, as we usually take in state and the action, and then start writing our conditions. There's different actions based on the action type. So in the switch statement, we pass action type, and then start adding cases. So case add, this is just going to return what has been added. By default, our state would be like products and then the list of products. So this one will remain the same. So state.products. We're like copying an array right now, and then we're also adding action.product that would be passed to our reducer as an argument. Okay, so now let's do remove case. Remove is a little bit different because we need to find the product by ID and remove that. So we're gonna also return products, but this time we're gonna take state.products and filter it. Filtering based on the ID that would be passed by as an argument. So product.id, and then it does not equal to action.id. And while calling this reducer, we need to remember what like arguments we're using here. And then third and like final case would be update amount. That was for like our counter where we're gonna use that. So for this one also we need to find the index of the product first, because we're gonna take that product and only update its amount. So find index, and then this would be product.id equals to action.id. Now we're gonna take that product in index and we're gonna update it. So updated, oops. So this would be everything copied from the product, like all the other fields, except quantity. That would be action.quantity. And then we will return the array like of all the products. So state.product. We're gonna slice out the old like product that was there, so 0 index, and then add the updated one at the end. So state.products slice from index +1. So all the elements in the array except that one, and then the updated one at the end. So updated product. And if there's like a default, there's a case that we passed that we don't have defined, we're just gonna like throw an error. So throw new error that has unhandled action type, and then this would be whatever action type that we have passed. Okay, now we have the reducer. Let's also define the provider. This would be provider that we're gonna wrap our children elements around. So any component that we want to use with this like context, it's gonna leave inside like a provider. So let's pass children. And let's take the state and also dispatch actions from the context that we created. Use reducer, and we pass the cart reducer. And by like default, like this is for initial state, like empty state of products. And then constant value equals to that like state and dispatch. And let's return cart context dot provider, and value equals to this value that we just created. So this would be passed to all the children, and inside here would be children. And we can also create for simplicity, so we don't have to define twice, the use cart hook. And we're gonna grab context. If, for example, we land on a component that we don't have this context access to, it's also gonna like throw the error. So use context, taking the cart context, and then if context is undefined, then throw another error. So use cart must be used within a cart provider. And then at the end, like, return context. And this is all to export and use the new element. So export the use cart and also the provider, cart provider, and wrap our components with it. And going to pages, I'm gonna wrap the whole application with that provider just because we need it as soon as, like, for example, already in the header, we want to show the numbers from the cart product. So cart, not context, but provider. This is from context, cart context. And the way we do it is we put cart provider, and then inside here we put the rest. So tab. Now we can go to our product page, and at the top import the use cart context hook. And so the way we can use reducers is using dispatch equals use. So in here, button add to cart, that's gonna take on click, and we're gonna pass the function. So dispatch. And dispatch takes in arguments. First, let's do what type it is. So type would be add. And product would be, we're just gonna take the product information that we have on the page. And we're gonna also, in addition to that, add, let's copy all the information, and quantity. So that would equal to the quantity that we have in here, the state that we created, right? So once users can update, and afterwards they can add that quantity to the cart. Okay, let's save this. Now let's test it out. So we are on the product page right now, and if we focus on this, I'm using React DevTools on the product page, we can see the cart context in here. So it has the dispatch functions and the state empty of products array. So let's see if we increment the amount, this amount gets updated in the state, in the component itself. If we say add to cart, then this array gets appended with one item in it. Things when somebody adds the item to the cart, maybe they press add to cart twice or something. We don't want the same item added in our products array, like as a separate object or like element. So we can do, when maybe somebody adds to cart, we can just display a message added to the cart. We are also going to indicate here like a number. And another thing, we can update the reducer. So first it checks if that specific item is already in the cart. And then if it is, then it's going to add the action quantity to it. So in here, in add, similar way to we do like update amount, we can find like the index. So and then if index is -1, or if it's more than -1, then here we can increment or like update the amount. So it would same thing. So quantity, instead of only action the quantity, we're gonna add it to, so product dot existing quantity plus action. So let's do this, new quantity. So let's say if they had 2 of like some socks already saved, and then they went on the same page and added 3 more, that would be like the new quantity. So new quantity equals product dot qt plus, so in total it would be 5, right? So then here new quantity. So else, if we can't find if it's just a new product that we want to add to our cart, then this else statement would kick in. Now let's move on to the header and add that little like number in the corner. So we have header inside navigation. So same here. In here we need to import our use cart hook. But instead of using dispatch in here, we're just gonna use the state because we need to like read the state. So as in how many items are in the cart. Oops. And then inside here, we're gonna add that number, if any. So like, let's make this div relative so we can position the number according to this like parent container. And in here, first let's check if like products have been added at all. So if state that product's length is more than 0, then we would display, so div class name, this would be rounded fully, so like a circle. Background, let's do black. Text would be white. Also, we want text to be small because even like these icons are small. So justify center items also center. So and then as I mentioned, actually why am I splitting this? We want position absolute. And then, so it's in the top right corner. So when I do minus top 3, that means like negative minus right 2. And then width of this and height of this should be same. Then state dot products dot length. Oh, see, we have like 1 item in the cart now. Okay, so let's also quickly do the cart page that we can like link to here, this icon in the header. Also, it would be like somewhat similar looking to this. Maybe instead of like bordering the image, we're gonna border the items because we could have like multiple items. And then we are gonna move on to search and build the filters out. So for the cart page in the pages, let's just like add a new page. Cart.js and so let's return div in here. So at the top we also need like the cart context to get the information from there. Use cart. And let's also import our button. And let's also get the state. So this would be use cart. So if there's nothing in the cart, then we're gonna say that it's empty. So if there's no products or there's a products array but the length is just 0, that's how we check. So return div and then let's do a paragraph. Your cart is empty. Let's enter this. So flags justify center. Okay. Then if not, let's display what we have. So state.products.map, this would be product index. Then return, let's here create like product container, also similar to how we did for the product ID. Do we have a cart element? Folder, no. So let's create folder cart. And then inside here would go new file, product container. I know why I keep capitalizing the product. And then some of the styling and stuff, I'll steal it from here actually. So let's do this. Wait, not that one here. So first thing, name, we're gonna leave the image loader. Also check if any of the imports are in the wrong place. So we are already inside components, so this would be one on the one way back. This is good. Products is also good because we need to close this out. Okay. And then we don't really need all the states, so I'm gonna remove this. Also, we don't need the product ID, we just need the context. So let's remove all this. Yeah, same, because we just want to display it. So this all would also go. And here we're just gonna grab the state. Oh, so this would be for updating the cart, and then the product itself we would just like pass by it because it's not a page, it's a component on the page, on cart page, so we need one single product like separately. So grid, and then here same thing, we do have a product span, product image. So one thing, instead of this here, we would have product already quantity that user indicated when they were adding it to the cart. As for the update quantity, this we're gonna dispatch. So we're gonna take in the quantity and dispatch. So this directly updates the cart. That's why we're using a different function here. So that would be update amount, and then in that function we indicated that we need to pass product.id and also quantity would be the new quantity that is being passed by from here. Okay, I think that should be it. Let's just add, instead of border rounded here around the image as I mentioned, let's just do it around like the product itself, so to differentiate products from each other. And then let's import this container inside here, so not the search one. Before I do that, I need to update the name of the export, so it's export default, so product container here, and then return product container. We don't need this extra tag, so key for mapping, that is index, and then product equals product as a props and as the item that we are passing. Once we close this out, at the end we want to have like a checkout button. For now in this tutorial I'm not doing any like payment integrations. That would be for the next one that's coming up. So this button we'll just like leave it empty for now. So So screen, large, margin auto, and justify. Let's make it at the end. Variant dark. Text would be checkout. Let's see, and here we already indicated the card, so button. So this is good, but in here we don't need components folder because we're already in one. But we do need default export. Yeah, I never exported it, so export default cart. State, that would be products, not product. So okay, your cart is empty. Now let's add something to the cart. So I'm just gonna go back to the product page, add to cart, navigate to cart. So see, we can see this here, and let's remove the add to cart button and add some padding in here. So we don't need this add to cart anymore because we have the checkout button, and wherever it's here, let's add padding, maybe like 5. Okay, so this looks better now. The filters now. Inside the search folder that we already have for other search components, let's create file for filters bar that's gonna contain all the filters inside. So export constant filters bar, and let's create the div for it. So class name, add some margin, and border is going to be on the right, so it's separated from the results container. It would be like next to it. Padding and border color, the usual. So at the top we're gonna have a section that just displays like an icon, says that this is for filters, and then has another button to clear filters. So padding bottom 2, this is flag, justify between. So on the left would be the filters, just the title, I mean the label. And border slate 300. Okay, and then let's import the icon that I'm gonna use for the filters. So this is import filters icon, and then from assets folder. So this is components, one more back, assets, icons, and then the name of the icon, let's see, yeah, it's filters.svg. And once we have that, we can put it into its own div here. So flags, item, center, filters icon, and then the span, filters. Then right next to it, we're gonna have a button, class name 2, and then this is gonna say clear all. Let's just display this filters bar on the page, search page, and then start adding more filters, like the actual filter functionality to it. So search page, in here, import. So this one would take up 3, and making space for the filters now. Actually, that would be on the left side. So div, class name, this would also be green, and then call span 1. filters bar. Okay, let's make sure it's displayed. Yep. Here we have that bar. So let's add filters in here. So for each of the filters, we're gonna have accordions in here. So that would be like expandable. Once clicked, and that will show all the options for the filter. Let's create that accordion first. Since accordion is like commonly reusable element, we're gonna put it inside elements folder. So new file, accordion.jsx. And by default, we can either make it open or closed. That's up to us. So it would take in the label that would be displayed, and the children that would be shown once it's open. So we need to somehow record whether or not the accordion is currently open. That's where our use state comes in. So use state, and then let's create new state is open, set is open equals use state false, and then function to update the accordion once it gets clicked to switch from one state to another, and that would be oops. So we're gonna take previous is open and set it to opposite of what that was. And now let's return the div itself. So let's create a fragment. So one part of this would be always displayed, which would be like the outer container, also like then label. So flex one justify between. We're gonna have like arrow icon on the side and then text on the left side. So some margin in here. So this is div on one side for the label, followed by the button, class name. Let's do 23, and then on click, you can also make the whole this segment clickable actually, but yeah, I'll click on click, it's gonna toggle the accordion, and then based on if it's open, we're gonna display arrow either up or down. So let's import the icons that I have for those. That would be import down arrow icon from assets, icons, and then down, I think it's down arrow SVG. And the up icon. Up arrow. So based on that, arrow icon, the good thing about the SVGR package that we are using is that you can also indicate the height and the width to this SVGs, and then icons will get updated accordingly. So this is down arrow icon. For it, also the same size, of course. So that would be it, and then inside here also checking if it's open, then we display the rest of the content. So accordion content, children. Okay, now let's import this into filters bar. So that one we have in the filters that we have from the data section. So open to the side. I'm gonna close this one out. So it would be categories, colors, genders, and price range. So below this, like the header section, let's start adding this accordion. So this would be like the parent container div for accordions would be flex direction would be column. So justify between border bottom, slate 300. And in here, let's make an accordion for categories. So it's capital C. And let's just make a div for now. Categories listed here. So we're gonna update this, but first let's make sure that the accordion is working. So yeah, this should be going as below as like a div. So let's see what's going on. Let's move this in here. Okay, yeah, that fixes it. There's like categories would be using, so categories, gender, colors are gonna be checkboxes. So let's create checkbox element and then import them inside the accordion. So element, this would go under. So we're just using like regular React input for like checkbox, but just because we want to apply styling and we want to reuse them, that's why I'm creating a separate component. So what is it gonna take? It's gonna take if it's checked or not, label, and then what happens on the on change. And it will return, let's have a div with flex item center. And then input, that's gonna take in checked value. Also, oops, ID is gonna be checkbox. On change also coming from the props. Type checkbox. Then the class name, so let's set width, height to the box, text, indigo 600, background gray 100, also rounded. So border gray 300. Focus, let's do ring blue 500 and focus ring 2. So closing out the input, next we're gonna show the label. So class, let's add some margin on the left side because we're gonna have that like checkbox itself. So text small, font would be medium, and the text itself would be of the darker gray. And label is the value itself is passed on from the props. So checked equal checked. Okay, and then export constant checkbox. We have that. Let's import it into our filters bar. So in here, let's map out categories. So category, index, and then return checkbox key equals index. So label would be the category name here. So category dot name, and checked, we're gonna make all the checks false by default before we create like a state that's gonna store all the like selected filters. And then on change, let's just console log. Then again, once we create the state management for this one, then we're gonna update the target check that would return the value, this function. And let's close this out. So we have that, and doing the same for the colors. So just updating label first. Colors. And then this one would also be color. Color name, and the function is the same. Okay, so yeah, we have the list of categories here, list of colors. And then here our function name is update query parent, not the update query. Let's test it out. So if we select colors, we can see that this URL gets updated, black, white, removing from male to female. Alright, the result don't get updated because we haven't done the filtering functionality itself. So let's do that now. And in filters bar component, but then our results are in results container. But because we pushed up filters to the query params, we can just fetch them from there, and we don't need to like pass props or anything. So let's import router in here. From next router. And also use effect and use state because we need to update the state of product itself. So the router hook goes here. And let's get our filters. Categories, colors, gender, price. And let's create product state that we can later on update on like filtering. This equals to, by default, we're gonna use products, like the full list. And also in here, I'm gonna indicate gender codes because in our product list, for example, we're indicating F and M, but then on the filters itself, it's like male and female. So we wanna say like what is code for what. So female would be F in our product, and then male would be M accordingly. Now let's write our use effect and how we're gonna update the product list based on how the filters in query params get updated. So in here we're passing categories, colors, gender, and price. Those are the ones we care about. And then if any of these are true, then we would have to do some filtering. Categories, gender, price. So let's say let updated products, and then we'll create a function called filter products that will take in this data. And then we would set products, updated products. So in case any of these params get updated, but none of these are set, then we can set the products back to its initial state, which is all products. So this one is coming from our data products file. And now let's create this function right here. So once again, it's taking in this filters. And by default, this would equal to products. We are creating a new list, making it equal to this. And then for each single one of them, we're checking if it is set. Then we want to filter down the data. So checking if the array exists and array length is more than 0. So then new products list. This would be new product. Filter. So product, we want to take the categories and we want to parse it out because it comes from the query and it's in the form of string. We want it to be in the form of array, and then check if it includes product.category. Okay, same thing for the color. Let's over one more time, make sure everything looks good. So gender codes is actually an object, not a function, so that would need, yeah. See if it works. Oh, here we have selected black, gender female, so we have 2 results. Colors, so let's remove black, so now we get all colors. Let's do brown, anything that's tagged by brown, pink. Yep, here we go. Now let's do pagination, and then we can place it in here so we can navigate in between pages of products and not display all products all together. For that, I'll create a new file in search folder. That would be pagination. Where did it go? Oh. Did I do something wrong? Pagination.jsx. Also, let's see the product list if we want to have it and compare to our filters list, because in filters the colors we have by like capitalized, and then in products list we have it as, you know, lowercase. So we want to make sure that's also matching. Going back to result container, what we can do is we can do JSON parse, and then we can do map, and then color, return color dot to lower case, and dot includes. Okay, so we're gonna map out the colors, and then we're gonna return all of them in lowercase. So gender would be different because gender has only one value, so we can directly compare if it's the same value. So we don't need this mapping. We can remove that. We can also remove the includes. So only thing we would need is we would have to compare to its code. So let's get that gender by code. This would equal to gender code. Here we can do JSON parse gender. And here we don't need JSON parse anymore. And this would be, so if product.gender equals to gender by code. And final one, this is the price. Here we have a range, right? So we just need to check if our price falls under the range. JSON price, not JSON parse. The length. So let's pick the minimum price first. That would be JSON dot parse price first element. And let's get the maximum price second element. Here, new product list. Filter. So this product should meet two categories. Its price should be more than minimum price. Also, our price is in a string, so we have to turn it integer. Product.price is less than maximum price. And parse and is more than minimum price. At the end, we return new product list. That, and one final thing here, we have product that we imported. Instead of this, we're just gonna use our product state. Maybe we can have product state have a different name just so that we don't confuse with the constant in here. For one more time, make sure everything looks good. So gender codes is actually an object, not a function. So that would mean, yeah. See if it works. Oh, here we have selected black, gender female. So we have two results. Colors. So let's remove black. So now we get all colors. Let's do brown. Anything that's tagged by brown. Pink. Yep, here we go. Now let's do pagination, and then we can place it in here so we can navigate in between like pages of products and not display all products all together. For that, I'll create a new file in search folder. That would be pagination. Here I'll import our utility package so that we're gonna have different classes for like the selected pages, so we'll need that. And then let's define some of those classes. So page number style. So the page that would be selected, the current page, we're gonna have a little bit different styling. Like it's gonna have like a color indigo around it. So let's set indigo 50, border indigo, that would be 500, and text also indigo 600. And let's do one for the default. This would be background white. Border of this one would be gray. Text a little bit darker gray. And then let's set different shade of gray. 50 on hover. Hover, background, gray, 50. Okay, so those the colors will be the ones that will be changing in between if it's a current or default. But then we're gonna have typos like the list of cells that would be applied to both. So that would be just like position. Inline we want flex, so every like number on the same line, items, like the numbers in between the box centered. We want border, some padding on the sides, small text, font would be medium, and on focus, let's set the Z index. Next, using these classes, let's create a button, and afterwards we're gonna map out those buttons. So we need number in there, so page index. Then what happens on the on-click, and current page index so that we can compare. If our button is the current one, then display the current styling. So button on click equals on click, and we'll paste like a current index. I mean the index of that specific button. As for the class name, CLCX, page index, does it equal to current page? Then we're gonna have page number style of like the current here. Otherwise, that would be page number style.default. And the styling that we created for all buttons in addition to that. Close this out. And then inside here, we need page index to be displayed. Okay, so we have that. And now let's create the pagination component itself. That would be the exported component. That would map out those buttons. So what information we're gonna need? We're gonna need pages total, so we can split up the pages. Is expanded. So current page on click page is expanded would be, let's say if we have only a few pages, then we're just gonna display all of them, right? But then if there's a lot of pages, we wanna set 3 dots in between, either in the beginning or in the end or both sides, depending on what is current page right now. And we're gonna move in like sets of 3. That's like the common of how websites do like pages. So let's start with the simpler case, which is expanded. And then they'll just like return all the pages. I don't know what happened to my automatic tag fields. It seems there are times when it's like stops working. So let's turn this pages total, because this is going to be a number, into an array. Let's map out an array, pages total. Map. This will be same as like for each, like not for each, but for loop. Return. So button first, always when we're mapping, we have to remember the passing the key. So page index. So because we start from 1, like the first page would be 1, but then this would map out starting from 0. That's why in here we add another 1. Then current page is whatever current page has been passed in the props. On click equals click page. Okay, so we have those buttons, and then let's do an else statement. So the two, I guess, pages that we would always display would be the first page and the last page. So let's map them out first. So button key of this would be 1. Page index also. Okay, so we are passing page index. I'm gonna copy that, do that for the last page as well. So key would be pages total. So that would be the last page. And page index would also be pages total. As for the current page on click functions, those are the same. Now, what is the magic that happens in between those? So as I mentioned, we can have the 3 dots either in the beginning and or in both places. So our current number might be in between. So in both cases, we gotta check, do we need like the 3 dots in here? So let's say if current page is more than 2, right? Then let's display it. So it would just be like a span. And let's do the class name. This like the same positioning as we have with the other page buttons. So like inline, flex, items, center, border, gray 300, background white, same paddings on the sides, text small, font medium. I could have just copied this now that I think of it. Text gray 700. And 3 dots in here. I'll move this one out. So those will be here and only would be displayed if the current page is not anything below 2. So starting from 3. And then finally, we want to check how far we are away from the last page. So pages total minus current page. It's more than 2, then we would also display the same thing. Now, in between, we have our array, sets of 3. and let's map them out. So once again, let's do array. So this would start from one, like previous one. So current page would be in the middle. That makes sense. So current page minus 1. Current page. So the array of 3 elements. And finally, current page plus 1. And we only filter out, so we don't want to display the first and the last page twice, right? So if this is in the proximity or first and last, we already have those. So let's filter them out. So if I enter the page does not equal to array of not allowed page numbers, 0 not allowed in on like this set, not in like general. 0, 1, and then pages total would be the 3 that I would exclude. And then this includes I. So if this don't include I, then we can have I. Okay, so now that we have our list, let's map them out. So page and index. And return button key equals index. Page index would be the page that's been passed. Current page is current page, and then onClick is the same onClick that we pass for every button. And by this, we close our button out. Missing here is the previous and next button. So we're gonna add that, but we're gonna add that into another component that we're gonna place this pagination one in. And then that component is also gonna have, so on the road where we're displaying results, on the left-hand side, we're gonna explain more information about our results. So for example, count of the results, you're showing this many results. And then on the right side, we're gonna have this pagination pages navigation from one page to another. So let's create the component that I mentioned. Import things at the top that we're gonna need. We will need use state and use effect. This is the place that we're gonna determine if our pagination components should be expanded and it should display like all the pages. So we want icons for previous and next buttons. So that would be from assets folder, icons, chevron, left SVG, this would be right side. I don't know if we need our utility class, but let's import the pagination component that we just created. So export constant results summary. So this is gonna have count, so total number of results, current page, results per page, and on page update. Okay, so let's calculate total pages here. So that would be, we don't want we want full number page, so we're gonna use math ceiling, take the count and divide by results per page. Let's store is expanded, set is expanded in here as well. That would be use state by default false. And use effect. So every time total number of pages gets updated. We also have to update expanded. So if total pages, let's say it's less than 8, then set it is expanded to true. So let's just display all the 8 pages. But anything above that, no. And now let's return our component. So div, it's so annoying without the auto field not working anymore. Auto tag. Class name. So on smaller screens, we want the children to take out the full width, but on larger screens, we want to split it up. So small sm flex 1 items center is justify between and my. So here we are having 2 divs. One would be for like the results summary, and another one would be for the pagination. So this one inside, let's do p class name equals to text color slate 300 text centered. And then text would go something like showing the count that would be passed, product results. So users know what's the total amount. And let's do this one. Flex justify between. Small hidden. So pagination is kind of navigation element. So we're gonna use the nav tag and class name isolate inline flex. We want everything on the same line. And a space yx rounded medium shadow small. Let's add area label that would be pagination. Let's create previous and next buttons. So I'm gonna move this out to have a little bit more space. So let's do span class name. This is for screen readers only. So we're using this Tailwind class SR only. So that would, and it's kind of like description of what this one does. So we imported chevron left and then width equals to 24. Same concept for the next one. And this would be right. Now what are we doing on click? On click we wanna use this function on page update. So that one needs a new index, right? So we're gonna take current page. We're gonna do -1 on it since it's a previous. And this would work the same, but instead of minus, we're gonna have, plus here. Now let's determine when this is disabled, which is usually like a good practice. We don't want anyone going on negative pages or getting errors. So current page equals to 1. We can't go any less than that. And for the next one, that would be when it's like the last page. So total pages. Now for the styling around this, we're gonna use the same styling that we had for the numbers itself inside on the pagination. So let's copy that. So that's previous number. Okay, so I'm gonna copy all this and then I'm gonna have where to put button class name here. Okay. And then in between we still want the numbers display, which is contained in the pagination component. So in between previous and next, we're gonna place that and we're gonna pass its props, so pages total equals to total pages. On click page is what do we call it? On page update. We also have current page, that is current page in this case, and is expanded, that would be is expanded. Okay, let's close this out. Search page, that is here. So import first. Result summary. And we need a few things to have here to pass it. One would be the current page. For that, we need state. So let's have use state from React. So constant current page, set current, and then we're gonna create like page update function as well. So use state, by default, this is 1. And we're gonna have just a constant for results per page. That would be 12. And constant on page update. This will take in the new index. And set current page to that new index. Okay, and then we can place the results summary above a results container. So count equals, for now I'm gonna pass a high number higher than we actually do have the product because I wanna see how the pages work in between. Also, I don't wanna have expanded pages. We wanna test out the 3 dots in between if it's working right. So that's why I'm doing a higher number. So results per page is results per page. And then on page update equals to page update. Okay, I think that should. So let's fix this one. And I have a typo here. It's result TS. Didn't change in the result summary when I copied over this button styling. So instead of page index, we're not gonna check because this is previous and next. So we're just gonna give it like a default styling. So it would be page number style default and the other one. So yeah, let's leave this one. Then this parentheses are extra. Okay, so there's two. So we have previous and next buttons, but in between we should also have pagination component. So let's go over there. Oh, here I'm missing the return statement. So we have to wrap this in a return. Okay, now it's there. So once we move in between pages, we also need to like divide the results accordingly. So let's do that right now. In addition to passing result summary, all this information about pages that we need, we're also gonna pass it to results container so it can split up the pages. So current page, we're gonna say this is current page. And then what else we need? We need results per page to know how much each like page slice should look like. So that would be results per page. Okay, and then now let's go in this file and make those changes. Pretty straightforward. First, let's destructure our props, which was current page and results per page. And then based on that, let's calculate our starting index and then ending index. So constant start index, this would equal to, so current page minus 1, because we're starting from 1, but then first index we want to be 0, times results per page. And then constant and index, that would equal to start index plus the results number per page. So results per page. Okay, and then we go down to products list and we slice it up based on those indexes. Start index, end index. Let's save it. And yeah, so we only have like few results, so that's why we only have 2 pages. 2 pages of results, but let's observe like the pagination behavior. So as you can see, once you move to 3, like the set of 3 is from 2 to 4. So it's gonna create this another one. Actually, we need it not from 2, but already from 3. So let's update real quick. So the logic here, this should be more than 3. On mobile view, as you can see, these filters take up too much space and they're like crossing over the other container. So we want to create this as a modal. Before we move on to working on some changes on mobile view, would be this search bar. So when we type in the search and press this, we want the results that contain that search to get updated. So first, let's go to the search bar, and in here we are already storing the search state, right? So wherever user types it, we're keeping track of it. So in similar manner that we did with other filters, we are going to use like the query params. So let's split this to right. Okay, so use effect. And our function to update query params. So new search, and let's import router. and push this to our search. So router.push. Path name would be the same. And then query, this one will contain only one field. That would be search, and that would also be the search state that we have. And once again, we need to pass that the shallow, oh, I think it's inside here that we pass. True. Okay. And then let's do the use effect. So this one runs every time search changes. We can also have some kind of like debounce, like as in wait not to run on like every keystroke. Search. And then in the results container, we're gonna read the search. Let's actually name this search text. Okay, and then results container. Here, in addition to all these other filters, let's get search text. Check for that as well. And passing on to our filter function. Okay, so let's write the logic. So if search text doesn't equal to undefined and JSON.parse search text length is more than 0. So this one is not an array, so actually we don't really need to check the length. So yeah, let's see. Let's just check if it exists. And new products list equals new filter product, and then let's say if we have like what's the name of the product, so that would be title. So if product dot title includes the search text, the parsed one, JSON dot parse search text. And in terms of search bar, let's actually update this on like button. So two ways we can do that. We can make this button, so type submit, and we can type equals submit, and we can wrap this as like a form. So form would close out here. So the difference of what I'm making right now versus what's gonna happen is, what this is gonna do is on every time user types in, it's gonna update the result, versus what I'm changing right now is when users type in, after they press search, then it's gonna go search for it. So let's say on submit, we wanna take this in and update query params based on search, and then we don't need this, in that case, use effect anymore. This will just get updated, and then this will capture its value when the button is pressed. So let's see. And while passing the search stringify, okay. And also on submit, we can pass the event and do event prevent default so that the page does not get reloaded, because that's like the default behavior on the browser. So prevent default, yeah. So let's say we'll fix the styling blouse and the URL is getting updated at the results. Let's see what's going on. Oh, we use this on load, but we didn't pass it on use effect. So use effect hasn't been triggered. So if we actually loaded the URL again, then it will work, but we also want it to be dynamic. Okay, so now that's the changes. Let's do dress. Okay, that working, and let's just say for, I think if we do display flags, that should be fine. Where's the, yeah. Class name equals flags row. Okay, perfect. First hide the filters, this one's on smaller screen. So filters we have on search page, so we're gonna hide it from there. And then that's very simple to do in Tailwind because we can just say it's gonna be hidden unless there's like a small, then it's on like bigger screens. If it's not small, then display on a block. And then for this one, we want this to like span full width, right? So we'll change this to 4 and then unless it's small, call span 3. And for the filter icon, we're gonna add that on the results container page, results summary page, because it would fit nice next to the like the summary here in the pagination. And yeah, based on the logic, then we'll build the model out. So first let's import filters icon, the similar that we are using on the filters. And that's from assets, icons, filters.svg. And the bar itself, so we don't have to like rebuild bar specifically, we're just gonna open it up inside model. So filters bar from bar. And let's have a state that's gonna keep track if the model is open or not. So constant is open, set is open, equals to use state false by default. And then we're gonna have 2 functions, one for the closing and one for the opening. Model that equals to set is open, false, and then the other way around. So open, that would be true. I'm gonna use this headless UI package. So this is by Tailwind. And let's go ahead and install it. I have not used their other components, so I'm not sure, I can't recommend it for other things, but for dialogue, it perfectly did what we were looking to do. So it worked out for me. So let's install, wait for this. So what I did here is that I copied this from their transitions example and then tweaked a little, like few things. So of course, show is open have to be passed whatever the name of our state is, but we also named it is open, so that's good. I added this block that's gonna be shown only on like a small screen. So it's the button for, and then on click I passed open model. Inside it has like filters icon. And then we have the dialog. So dialog, I use their like panel, but then inside they have a different like deactivated account inside like the content. So I updated the content. For us, we have the filters bar in here, and then below we have cancel. So let's say if you don't want to apply those changes, and then apply, and then both of those would like close out the modal. And so yeah, here it looks like you can pause the video if you wanna copy this. So this is some of the styling in here, and then so below for this one, this is what it looks like. All this like components from the package that we installed. At the top we have to import these two things, similar to like how I have here. Since we're displaying this as a fragment, we also need to import fragment. So that actually comes from React. Since we have React imports at the top already, we're gonna append to them. It would look like we're doing the mobile view. So as you can see, the other like filters disappeared. We have this button here. So let's press this button. And now we have all our filters in here. We are gonna go back to is this header. As you can see at the top in the menu, we have women and men section, and also we're gonna update the links for them. And when we are on this page, we want this to be like highlighted. So that we can easily do because we already built out filters and search pages, so we can just build the links from there. So let's go from per header, so that would be, we'll update the URL. Import use router, so we can push these changes. Next.router. And let's also do use state and use effect to keep track of whenever which of the menu is active. From React. So there's two ways we can handle the active menu. It could be either when somebody clicks here, or it could be that we can detect which link we're on. So item active, set menu item equals to, by default, none of these are active. Let's get the router that equals to use router. Price, that would be router.query. And then use effect. So here we want filters, and then only filter that when only gender is set, that's when we want to highlight either one of our pages, male or female. But then on the other pages, we don't really want to do that. For the other filters, I mean. So if gender does not equal to undefined, and we don't have categories, we don't have colors, and the price selected. So set menu item active, and we'll set this as gender, but let's do json.parse gender. Then else set menu item active back to the empty state. Okay, and then let's update the field. So for the search URL, we had search, and we would have gender pre-selected here. Female, and because I'm using double quotes, I need to wrap them in this one instead. Sorry, female, and then one quote. Same thing here. Okay. So that one, and same for the man. S4 is active. Let's pass that on. So that would equal to if gender equals to female. And this one would be male. Okay, and then let's see, do we have styling for the active nav link? We do have styling, and we are checking here. If it is active, let's apply active style. All right, perfect. Oh, okay. Because we didn't, because we were parsing from, okay. So let's see, man. Oops. Oh, here we put the same thing, that's why. So man, this will get up there. Alright, that would be it for the tutorial. Thank you so much for coming along all the way to the end in this tutorial. I really appreciate it. Also keep in mind that I will be releasing full stack version of this where we would learn all the backend technologies. So make sure to keep an eye on it. Thank you.